This is a Founding Media podcast, produced at Austin Community College District.
Welcome back to Science in the Mall, y'all, with me, Dan Dillard, and my co-host and director of ACC Bioscience Incubator, Nancy Lyon. This season, we've heard about a variety of exciting options available to our listeners interested in a career in bioscience. And we're closing things out by talking to Ramesh Koukuntla of Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies. Ramesh is the head of process development at Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies, which develops and manufactures gene therapies and vaccines, not unlike the COVID vaccines that have been so instrumental in fighting the pandemic the last couple of years. Ramesh talks about the amazing science happening at Fujifilm Diosynth and our greater Texas community, and gives us a unique insight into how the biosciences job market evolved since the pandemic. He shares invaluable tips for students who are looking to secure a job after graduation, and talks about all the different opportunities available in a large bioscience company like Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies. Let's jump right in.
Thanks for being with us, Ramesh.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the show. It's always exciting to talk about the science, especially the work we do at Fujifilm Diosynth.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. I'm curious about the explanation of Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies, what it does, and if you would explain that to us like we're high school freshmen in bio class, so we can really get a good understanding.
Yeah,
Sure.
at least.
Yeah. So I'm Ramesh. I work at the Fujifilm Diosynth site in College Station, Texas. Mm-hmm. Fujifilm Holdings owns the Fujifilm Diosynth part of the business, which is a CDMO, which stands for Contract Development Manufacturing Organization. So as a CDMO, we work on different types of biological products. Biological products include monoclonal antibodies. It could be DNA vaccines, mRNA vaccines, traditional vaccines, viral vectors that are used in gene therapy, and of course, all of the traditional microbial products, recombinant proteins and such. We have 4 sites, big sites across the globe. We have one in UK, one in Denmark. We have the 2 big sites in US are at North Carolina and the College Station sites. We also started 3 small sites recently, one in Boston, one in Darlington, UK, and the latest site is in LA, Oaks. So as a company, Fujifilm Diosynth works on vaccines, viral vectors, recombinant proteins, and biological products, which are different from pharmaceutical products, which are small molecule drugs, right?
Mm.
So when you say work on, you're actually making them at your facility in College Station?
We do. So what happens typically is, as a CDMO, as a contract manufacturing organization, companies, universities, small labs, startup companies, they come to us and they say, we have this exciting product, we have this phase 1 material, we would like to do a large clinical trial at phase 2 or phase 3. And sometimes they come to us after phase 3 and say, we have done phase 3 clinical trials in humans or animals for veterinary vaccines. And they say, we have this exciting product, we want to bring it to the market, but we don't have manufacturing capability. So they come to us because we have the infrastructure, we have the experts, we have the regulatory backup and the background to manufacture large-scale vaccines and biological products. So we do manufacture products for small-scale studies, for whether it is toxicology studies in animals or commercial products all the way after phase 3.
So you have to, I imagine that the people that are asking you to do this are the ones that kind of did it small scale. And so they have to teach you how to make their thing, or you guys take that over, or what is that?
That's just a good question. So it goes both ways. Sometimes companies come to us or universities come to us and say, we have this exciting new vaccine. We think it works great in animals. Now we want to test it in humans in phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, but we don't know how to do it. Because companies and startups or even university labs, they have very good experience of developing a product at a small scale. And when I say small scale, I'm talking about like a 6-well plate or a small 4-inch cell culture plate, right? But you're making vaccines for global use, then you need to make vaccines at a much larger scale, right? We're talking about 2,000 liter bioreactors, multiple 2,000 liter bioreactors, right? Scaling
2,000 liters.
from 2 mLs to 2,000 liter reactors, that's a massive scale up, right? So there are all kinds of experts involved in that. There are engineers, there are electricians, there are mechanical engineers who operate these massive bioreactors. They operate these facilities 24/7. We have quality control experts. We have quality assurance experts. So across the gamut, right? So there's all fields that we derive expertise from for manufacturing these vaccines. So going from a 6-well plate or a small tissue culture well plate to a 2,000 liter bioreactor, it's a big jump.
Wow, I
And that's
imagine.
a long time to go there. Right? It takes about 2 to 3 years to get there. So.
Okay.
Wow, because we were talking to somebody yesterday or the other day on one of these, and they're doing 500 liter,
Yes.
500 liter reactors, and we were, aghast at that volume, and so you just like, whoa. So yeah, so I'm curious, like, you guys are involved in the making of this current COVID vaccine, no?
We are actually working on 2 COVID vaccines. One is, of course, the public news, which is Novavax. We are making the Novavax COVID vaccine for them. And there's another COVID vaccine that we're also making. But we're also making a couple of small startup company COVID vaccine products too. So the Novavax product is at a much larger scale, obviously, compared to a smaller startup company. So.
Wow.
Yeah. And also, going back to the 500 liter reactor that you're talking about, right? Bioreactors can be 10 liters, 20, can be 50 liters, 200, 500, 2000. We also have a high throughput facility where we have 8 2,000 liter reactors, and they run 24/7, right? So, but that's for vaccine products. Now, if you're using it for, let's say, for a different indication, whether it's cancer or gene therapy, you don't need a lot of product. So maybe you need a 200 liter bioreactor to make enough material to get you through phase 1 and phase 2. Commercial products need a much larger scale. So.
Has this affected, like your demand, I guess is the word? I mean, or is this like only coming to our realization, or is this something that you guys have been doing at this kind of scale and all the time, and this COVID vaccine demand hasn't really upped your, need for people or whatever, space, labs?
Well, everything changed after COVID, right? I mean, the world changed, people changed, our perceptions changed, our views changed, how people do science has changed quite a bit. And I hope it's for the better. But we were planning for gene therapy scale up, right? The College Station, Texas site was established for working and manufacturing gene therapy products. That doesn't mean that we can't do vaccines, but we were set up to originally manufacture gene therapy products. But after COVID and during COVID, we saw the opportunity and the demand, and of course the need for making COVID vaccines, and that's when we ramped up our facilities and our expertise and the resources and the people and the staff rapidly in 2 years. Right, we were supposed to be in this position where we are currently. We are about 750 full-time employees on site. Pre-COVID, we were close to 300. So in 2 years, we went from 300 to 750 people during the Great Resignation, right? So it's been quite a challenge. But it's also a good challenge, right? It's a good problem to have for us. So yeah, we did anticipate to be here, let's say in 2025 or 26, but we're already here, right? So there's a lot of work out there to do. There's a lot of demand for gene therapy products and vaccines. And the improvements that happened in the COVID vaccines in the last 2 years, especially the mRNA vaccines, lipid nanoparticles, exosomes, that's all driving the market. That's all driving the interest and the science, honestly, towards scaling up the products.
I'm just, you talked about that over doubling your employees during the Great Resignation. I mean, with so many people or so many jobs being out there, not enough people to work for them. Just curious, about your experience, the hiring experience, like hiring students, like maybe with associate's degree versus a bachelor's degree, or even like what kind of internships or other opportunities a student, because a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are going to be students. What kind of opportunities they have with an associate's degree to pursue something in biosciences with a company like yours?
Yeah. So it's not been easy, right? I mean, ramping up the people, ramping up the staff, and then we're talking about experienced scientists here who can operate at a very high level on a very short notice. It's not been easy. Luckily, we have a very good, strong, experienced workforce in Texas who are helping us. However, we also lean a lot on the local universities and colleges, Texas A&M, for example, Blinn College, which are local. And we also have some people from University of Austin recently who are here. We are recruiting very heavily from entry-level positions, whether it's bachelor's, master's, or PhD entry-level positions, and training them on the business aspects because they know the science and we know the business, right? So we could probably switch them easier to the business and we can train them and guide them of operating under CGMP guidelines. We also have opportunities for a lot of the associate degree um, students. For example, we recruit heavily into the manufacturing facilities that we have in Texas. A lot of our staff have associate degrees, but the nice thing is we encourage them to go and go for higher degree education, right? So it is a continuous improvement process here. A lot of our staff in manufacturing staff and also the process development staff in our department, we pay for their tuition, we pay for their education and training. We have on-site training, we have training courses that are conducted virtually and sometimes across the campus in Texas A&M here. So we encourage them, we provide help as and when needed for their tuition and for finding resources and for finding avenues for developing. Because what we do is not easy, right? I mean, it's not easy, and we need experts who have the background, who have the right expertise on this. If students have the interest, we are definitely willing to work with them and help them grow into the positions. Sometimes what happens is somebody who's 18 years old or 20 years old, they have no idea about how real science works out there, right? So sometimes they come here and they say, wow, this is exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And that's great, right? Sometimes they come in and say, this is not really what I wanted to do. Maybe I want to switch tracks into biochemistry or marketing or sales or finance, right? And that's fine, right? It always helps to have the right background. So if somebody has a background in science and they want to switch to sales or program management or marketing, that's even better.
Yeah, because they know enough.
I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing with this series and the podcast is that, you hear all these, all the time, like science. Oh, you have a proclivity for science. And there's a gajillion flavors of it. And, what is that job? What do you have to get out of bed every morning and do? And I think what you just said nails it, and kind of what we would love to hear, from you, if you're willing to talk about it, is just what is it in life? Like, what does it mean to be manufacturing a vaccine in a 2,000-liter reactor? I mean, we got a little bit of it from, like I said, one of the students that is doing some upstream manufacturing. But, every job is different in what you guys are doing, and you're doing it at a much larger scale and with much, bigger eyes on you and stuff. And I think helping anybody, not just students, but just people in the workforce, people that are sick of their career and like you said, jumped into their Great Resignation. What is this job and what is this career? And I think it's super fascinating and welcome your Reader's Digest version of what what that looks like as an employee.
Sure. So at the end of the day, what we do is it's in simple terms, we produce, we purify, we test it, and we send it to the clinic, right? Those are the big chunks of what we do. Production is what we call it upstream. development or upstream manufacturing, purification with what we call downstream manufacturing. That's where you purify the product, and testing is done by our analytical and quality control experts. Then you, of course, have the quality assurance experts who make sure that everything is done according to the guidelines. So those are the big chunks of work we have. But then we also have a lot of background support in terms of engineers who keep the facility running, process engineers who design the reactors and the process. We also have mechanical engineers and electrical engineers who support the work that we do. So somebody who has a background in, let's say, in biology, let's say basic biology, right? They can come here and say, I want to start in, I have background in cell culture, right? So they start in basic cell culture, they learn the aseptic techniques, they learn the basics of production at a small scale. And then if they have the interest and background, they can also go into downstream manufacturing and learn about downstream purification, different types of chromatography, different types of filtrations, how do you purify columns, how do you purify products using columns. And then, of course, you test them by analytical testing, ddPCR, qPCR, RT-PCR, Western blots. Those are all the standard molecular biology assays that we use. So yeah, there are opportunities. What we do in Fujifilm Diosynth, especially in College Station, is we proactively encourage new staff to explore different opportunities and different groups. So basically, it's like what you do in grad school, right? Instead of having a grad school rotation, we have a rotation within PD. So somebody works if they get into upstream. First 1 month they spend in upstream, then the second month they spend in downstream, and so on. And in the first 6 months, they get the flavor of the entire process, and they get a better understanding of how the entire process works.
That was what I was going to ask you. Like, can they jump from one to the other and try them all out? And that's great that you're doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And at the size we are right now as a site, we have 750 people. In a few years, we might be close to 1,000 people. So that's a large company. But the good thing is we have multiple opportunities, right? We want people to explore other opportunities. Me personally, I get very bored very fast. So I like new challenges. So I'm always looking for new things to learn, right? So, and this is a perfect place to learn. If I want to learn program management, I just go across the corridor and I talk to the program managers and I learn what program management means or project management involves. If I want to learn about marketing, I reach out to Katrina and I ask her and I learn how do I reach out to what do I do to reach out to the students, right? Because part of the job, scientists are very good at science, but they're very bad at marketing, right? Whether convincing people to do certain things or explaining stuff, we're not very good at that. So scientists are not good at that. So, but there's no shame in acknowledging that, right? That's why we talk to the experts and learn. I spent 1 year, the first year of my job in Fujifilm Diosynth was on the sales side. So I was somewhere between sales and technical. So I was talking to a lot of companies. Sometimes I was talking to 5 or 6 different companies every day. And that got me thinking, like that gave me exposure to a lot of different companies. How do they market products? What are they looking for scaling up? Why are they driving their products in a certain direction? That changed my thinking process of how process development scientist, which I am right now, should approach when we talk to customers and clients. That, even though right now I'm in a completely different area in Fujifilm Diosynth, the time I spent in the first 1 year on the commercial side gave me a strong foundation to what I'm doing right now. So that's what I encourage. That's what we encourage all of our younger scientists, like explore manufacturing, explore quality control, explore quality assurance. And we want scientists to develop and take risks when they're young, right? It's easier to take risks when you're younger and when you're settling down in your career rather than when you get comfortable later on in your career. So.
What you were just talking about made me think about I have a friend who did his PhD in my lab at UT, and he went off and got a job at a small biotech company. And, thought that was a great way to kind of get his chops in industry and whatnot. And, he quickly maxed out what he could get out of a small company. And he called me, he said, I want to go work for big pharma. And this guy is not the guy that wants to go work for big pharma. And I was like, what? Really? And he said, you know what I miss at UT? If there was like a process that I wanted to learn or a piece of equipment I wanted to use or just somebody that knows something, I could find them. And in a small company, will have that. He said, you go to big pharma and it's like the treasure trove of what you were just talking about, like all the different expertise, all the resources at your disposal to just really learn what you want to learn and really hone your career. And he very quickly had his own lab at Pfizer. So I think he made a good leap. But I that's really cool to hear that, that Fujifilm Diosynth is also kind of in that league.
Yeah, honestly, it goes both ways, right? We have lot of experienced staff who started in large pharmaceuticals. I myself am coming from Boehringer Ingelheim. I worked there for 7 years before coming to Fujifilm. We have scientists who started in small startup companies and make the switch to large pharmaceuticals, large biotech, or scientists who started in large biotech and then move back to small startup companies later in their career. So it goes both ways, but I guess it depends on what you're looking for. I did start my career in a small startup company in Iowa. The company I started, it had 7 or 8 people back in 2002. Then it grew to a mid-sized company, about 300 people, before I switched to Boehringer, because I wanted, like the person you were talking about, I wanted the exposure to a large pharmaceutical company. So I worked in Boehringer Ingelheim, which is globally, it has 65,000 employees. So that's a large pharmaceutical. But that gave me a lot of different opportunities that I got at a startup company. Right? So if somebody is approaching me for suggestions, I always tell them that you need to work both places, right? You need to work at a startup company
Mm-hmm.
and you can work at large pharmaceutical. There's no wrong way to go about it. But the wrong thing to do is to just get stuck in one opportunity in one place, right?
Right.
Especially when you're young, when you're starting in your career, learn as much as you can, get exposure, and then settle down. So,
Yeah, I think that just doesn't get talked about. I think people think they have to pick something and stick with it, and that exactly illustrates it. Like I'm sure he will now go back once he's gotten what he needs out of a big pharma and go do exactly what you just said. So yeah, that's great.
and settling down in the traditional um, definition, I would say, is not going to be the case anymore, right? Because science these days is advancing so fast.
Right.
Bioinformatics, CRISPR, LNPs, exosomes. When I started my career, adenoviruses and retroviruses were all the rage, right? And then they came. You have the silencing RNA, you have the CRISPR, now you have the AAV and exosome. So you can't actually settle down to one career anymore. And the way to you keep up is by learning new stuff, whether it is within your area of expertise or you branch out, right? You branch out slightly. You can go to QC, you can go to QA, program management, and that's how you move forward. The people who move forward, especially in their careers, they don't have a linear path, right? They go zigzag. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the fastest way to learn and move forward.
And the scariest
Yeah.
way.
Exactly. So.
Well, I think that's what's so great about the work that's being done over at ACC and the lab, what Nancy's running, is that there's so much opportunity to learn from the different tools that are there, just hands on. And just like we've had so many conversations about that hands on using different instruments being so useful in something in the future that they didn't even know about going forward. So like they got an opportunity because they learned about this one instrument hands on. It was just part of their daily thing, and that got them in the door.
Right. I have students that we hire through the biotechnology program who actually run my facility. So we have about $2 million worth of equipment in this 8,000 square foot lab space. And I need people to like keep it going. I can't maintain and calibrate and all that stuff of all this equipment. And so these students come in, they've heard about it in their classes, but then I'm like, all right, well, somebody needs to do the maintenance on the FPLC and somebody needs to go and, do all that. And they don't know what those things are, but by the time they're done, they sure do. And they know it well. And I've seen that a lot of our students that have worked over at the incubator have gotten their jobs, their actual full-time, really good career jobs, because that happened to be the thing they chose to go do their maintenance on. And, now they do that for, one of our guys does downstream processing, and he was my FPLC guy. He was like, oh no, just decided he liked our ACTA and he wanted to be the guy that learned how to use it. Now he's like doing large scale downstream. And it's like, oh, that paid off.
So speaking of students, we do have in Fujifilm Diosynth, especially College Station, we started a couple of new student programs which would benefit local students, Texas A&M and Blaine College students. One is where we hire student help for maintaining the lab, right? Like students, freshmen, sophomores who are here in the first year or second year, they are just trying to get through the classes. They're looking for a hourly job. So we recruit them for maintaining the lab, and in summers they work full time if they want to on with a scientist on a project of their interest. So 1 year they work in upstream, second year they work in downstream, and so on. And during the school year, they come in, they do their chores, and they get out. So that gives them exposure to the science that we're doing for 4 years. We did the same program back when I was in Iowa, and that was a successful one. In fact, 2 of the scientists we have in my group are from Iowa who were students back there in a similar program. The second program we are doing is for the non-thesis master students. This is a temporary technician program. So they come in here, they work for 20 hours during the last semester, mostly on the innovation projects that we have. And if they like it, then they stick around for a full-time position. So they graduate and they come directly into Fujifilm because they've already been here for 6 months. They've established the relationship. We know their culture fit and the team fit. And they also get the hands-on experience and they know what they're doing. So that gives them a head start. And the third program we have is for interns, or the traditional intern programs that happens in summer. Last year we had 55 or close to 60 interns in different areas. We had interns in finance, marketing, engineering, sales, everywhere. So that was a very good exposure for a lot of interns at Texas A&M. So in fact, we had some interns from out of state too. So
I would love to figure out a way to partner on that. I mean, I know when I was at UT that there was just a constant like desperation for kind of experience, right? Like especially the undergrads going out of there is just, what do I do with this biology degree or biochemistry degree? But even the PhD students, if you didn't want to go into academia, they didn't know how to transition into industry. And if there was a way to, especially if you're doubling your your personnel in, every year or two, I think, offering those kinds of things to UT in addition to the A&M, and I would love to figure it out for ACC, it'd be a great program.
And it's not just about the positions at College Station, right? We also have a very big site in North Carolina, Research Triangle Park, and we are building our Holly Springs site in North Carolina, which is going to be the largest cell culture facility in US. That will be up and running in 2025. That will probably need another 700 to 800 scientists to run that facility.
Wow.
So and then they're working on different expertise, right? Like somebody has monoclonal experience, monoclonal antibody experience. Somebody wants to work on biochemistry. Somebody is excited about analytical development, but for proteins, not about gene therapy products. Right? So we have opportunities across the country for different areas. The recent site that we acquired in Thousand Oaks, LA, that is working on cell therapy products, which are up and coming up technologies, which is a very exciting area to be, honestly. So if somebody wants to work on cell therapy, they can go to LA. If somebody wants to work on monoclonal antibodies, they can go to North Carolina. And it also goes both ways because some of our scientists who have been at North Carolina for, let's say, for 5 years or 10 years, they started working on monoclonal antibodies in their careers, and now they want to switch to gene therapy. So they come over to Texas. And we also have scientists who are coming from UK to Texas because we work on gene therapy products.
Wow.
So, but we want to have that cross pollination. Right? We want people from Texas to go to North Carolina and vice versa because we want to share the knowledge. We want to share the excitement.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love hearing the growth. I love hearing all the opportunities. You elaborated significantly on this. Was just the day in the life of these students. You've got three different tracks that you help students kind of figure out what they want to do while they're in school. I think that's really really great. I guess what comes to mind now is, what advice do you have for students that are looking to enter the job market with this interest in biosciences?
Take risk, right? Take risk. Take risks early in your career. Explore. Don't settle down early, because what you want later on in your career will be completely different to what you start. And the earlier you explore, the earlier you start, the better for your career trajectory. One big mistake that younger students do is that they come into the lab thinking that I'm an analytical scientist, so I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And they don't pay attention to what happens upstream and downstream and QC and QA. But the scientists who progress, who have success in their careers, are the people who explore other areas out of their interest, right? I'm not a analytical scientist, but I want to learn about QC. I'm
Right.
not a program manager, but I want to learn about program management. Um, that exposure is very, very important early on in your career to understand, to have a complete picture of what you're doing. So my advice to students is that learn and develop and take risks early on in your career. So,
That's
I
such
feel
good
like it's
advice.
also, oh, I'm sorry, Dan. I was just thinking like something that's come up in a lot of these conversations is, like what you like and what you're good at may not be exactly the same thing. Like how people are wired is, it's how you're wired and it's what you're good at. And it may not be like what on paper, well, that's the title I want. It's like, okay, but are you detail oriented enough to have that position, or are you mechanically inclined enough to have that one, or are you patient enough to have that one, and just kind of think self actualization, like understanding and paying attention to what you're good at, what your skills are, what your interest levels are, all together, and then doing what you just said, which is explore all the different things.
Well, I think it's so great because I do think that people, naturally have an environment as I go to school, I hit a job, and here's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And that mindset needs to break. Is like in science and all areas, but in science especially, it's so diverse, and you're gonna your career is gonna do all these things. So being open to, like, I'm always growing, I'm always learning, I'm always seeing what's around the door, and being uncomfortable, getting uncomfortable with a whole new. I wasn't trained in this, but I'm interested in doing that, and I take off and learn about that. So I think that's
Right?
such great advice.
Say yes. Are those internship and the other like entry level kind of programs and stuff? Is that stuff that people can find readily on your website, or is that something that kind of requires us to have an inside connection to the people, to the personnel and HR people?
so the intern positions are advertised in November because it's not a year-round positions, because we only hire interns in summer. So they are typically advertised between September and November of every year. Those are advertised on our career web page. The student help and the PD technician positions, they are advertised as needed. Right now, we are looking for 6 student helpers and 6 temps who are in the final year of their master's program. So whenever we need them, we advertise their positions, because student helps are supposed to be here working between classes. So the local students would be better fit for that. The intern positions would be for anybody across the country. So that and then they're paid interns, right? So they are advertised in November, but we can definitely connect with you now that we know who to reach out. We can definitely figure out a way of better advertising these positions across Texas.
There's just so much here. This has been such an incredible knowledge gain from what that you've shared, Ramesh. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
that's
your
great.
time,
Thank you.
Nancy. It's great questions. I really learned a lot from the conversation. So thanks very much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for inviting us on the show. Because it's always exciting to talk about science, and I always think back to when I was a young student, and I thought I knew everything. Now I know much I
Didn't
don't.
we all?
So it's always whenever I get a chance to talk about science, I always love to like the opportunity and love to brag about what we do. Because what we do is really really tough, and it's also very cool. At the end of the day, what we do is science, but we also keep in mind that it impacts a lot of families. We work on gene therapy products. I've been through my personal situation where I have family members who had ALS, who had cancer, and they can be very, very stressful, right? So the
Yeah.
products that we make impact a lot of their families, a lot of young children who have no other option other than the gene therapy products that we make probably could end up curing them. So that's the thing that gets me up every day in the morning. That's the thing that drives me. Because there is no other option for people who are suffering
Right.
from genetic disorders.
Yeah.
What we do might save a lot of lives and make a big difference for them. It's hard for me, but it's what they are going through is unimaginable, right? So
Yeah.
if we can make a
What
small difference for them, that's a big deal for us. So.
And I think people don't think about where these things come from, right?
Right.
Like there was all this talk with the vaccine of like, oh, how long it took to make. It's like nobody's ever thought about how a gene therapy gets made or how long it takes a vaccine to get made or like where it ships from. Like all of this stuff is now like people are are actually paying attention and interested and maybe curious enough to pursue it as a career.
So incredible. Yeah, no, and I love these conversations because it makes you think about one, the mission and the why, but also, the how incredible it is how things are changing so fast and just
The how.
the
Yeah,
how,
like that you
how
actually
it's done, the
make
why,
this in
and how
cells.
quick it's happening. So thank you both.
Thank you so much for joining Science the Mall, y'all. Ramesh. It's inspiring and humbling to learn about the incredible, life-saving work that is happening in our community. And it's amazing that we're able to receive advice about career development directly from the recruiting teams. It sounds like there's a job in the biosciences for every type of personality and every interest, from production to development to quality assurance. It's all about putting yourself out there and being willing to try, fail, and always learn. This has been a wonderful season of Science in the Mall, y'all, and I would like to thank all of our guests for joining us. And of course, we'd like to thank you, our listener, for tuning in and participating. If you learned something new or got something out of this episode, whether it's a laugh, inspiration, or an idea for your own bioscience company, please share it with a friend, colleague, or loved one. We'll see you on the next season of Science in the Mall, y'all. Bye for now. This has been a Founding Media podcast produced in partnership with Austin Community College's Bioscience Incubator, which is the region's only wet lab space for Austin's growing bioscience industry.